Get off me! Help! Help! Help!
The St. Johns County Sheriff's Office in Florida publicly shared harrowing footage last week of an attempted kidnapping, which resulted in the arrest of 31-year-old Theodore Michael Tundidor. In the newly released video, the suspect can be seen choking a woman and dragging her toward his truck as she screams for help. The woman was able to break free and ran for safety, and was assisted by an onlooker who watched the attempted abduction unfold. Tundidor fled the scene and police apprehended him later that day after he was seen driving recklessly. He led law enforcement on a high-speed chase and has since been charged with robbery, kidnapping, and grand theft auto. A police spokesperson praised the victim for doing everything right, including screaming, yelling, fighting, and attracting attention to the situation at hand. Number 26. Cynthia Sosa. Reports surfaced last week of a Florida woman who was arrested for attacking a fellow driver with beer spray for getting impatient with her while she stopped to let her chicken cross the road. According to an arrest report, the female victim pulled up behind 38-year-old Cynthia Sosa and began honking at her, then passed her vehicle and ran over the chicken, killing the bird. Angered by the incident, Sosa allegedly exited her vehicle, approached the driver's side of the victim's car, and sprayed beer mace directly into the woman's face. A brief fight broke out between the two women before Sosa got back in her vehicle and drove off. She was arrested during a traffic stop and told police that she wanted to teach the victim a lesson. Sosa was charged with 2 counts of aggravated burglary and 1 count of burglary with assault and battery. She's currently awaiting her arraignment, which is scheduled for July 24th. Number 25. Carol Cormier and Lacey Horsley. 33-year-old Carol Paul Cormier and his 18-year-old girlfriend, Lacey Horsley, are now facing criminal charges in Virginia for the shooting deaths of 54-year-old Chad Wayne Ashford and 56-year-old Audrey Elaine Hudgens Moraa, who were killed inside their Virginia home. According to law enforcement, Cormier acted as the gunman while Horsley was the getaway driver. The couple is accused of returning to the crime scene the following day and setting the victim's house on fire. Court documents state that the suspects were quick to turn on one another once they were in police custody following their arrests during a traffic stop. Horsley implicated Cormier as the shooter and admitted to returning to the scene with him to destroy evidence, while Cormier admitted to losing his temper during an argument with one of the victims, but pointed the finger at Horsley as the mastermind of the arson. During a court hearing for the defendants, Cormier's mother described Hudgens as her best friend of more than a decade, while stating that she was also close with Ashford. Cormier is charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder, 2 counts of use of a firearm in the commission of a murder, 1 count of possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and 1 count of burning or destroying a residential home. Horsley is charged with 2 counts of acting as an accessory after the fact in a murder, and 1 count of conspiracy to burn or destroy a residential home. Number 24. The murder of Tyler Martinez. Former Texas Southern University football star Tyler Martinez was shot dead in a parking garage during a dispute outside a Houston apartment complex, where he was found suffering from multiple bullet wounds during the evening hours. Emergency responders tried in vain to save the 24-year-old athlete, who was pronounced dead at the scene. Investigators learned that Martinez had gotten into an argument with 22-year-old Isaac Jasper Robinson, who is accused of retrieving a gun from his vehicle and opening fire on the victim. He's accused of striking Martinez 3 times in the torso before fleeing the scene, only to later return and confess to his actions. The 2 men lived in the same apartment complex, but it's unclear whether they knew each other. Prior to the shooting, Robinson is charged with first-degree murder with bond set at $150,000 along with a strict curfew. Number 23. Freak lightning accident. An archery instructor was killed, and over a dozen others, including several children, were injured by lightning at an outdoor range in New Jersey last Wednesday night. A scout troop was learning how to shoot bow and arrow at the Black Knight Bowbenders Archery Club in Jackson Township when the lightning struck just after 7:00 p.m., killing 61-year-old Robert Montgomery of Cinnaminson. The surviving victims were taken to the hospital with injuries varying in severity, including at least 1 individual who suffered major burns. Montgomery was working as a volunteer at the time of the incident. He and his students were shooting arrows when the lightning bolt struck a nearby tree. At least 1 of the survivors lost consciousness, but woke up following the tragic freak accident, which has been described as an incredibly rare occurrence. Number 22. Alexander Lee Smith. 23-year-old Alexander Lee Smith has received consecutive life sentences for the murders of Walter Mitchell and Susie Ephraim, who were killed inside their Peoria, Arizona home in November of 2023. According to Maricopa County prosecutors, Smith, who was 21 years old at the time, forced his way into the victim's residence and shot them both after a deal to purchase their rear Ford Mustang fell through. Mitchell had cancelled the sale after Smith's wire transfer did not go through, then sold the high-performance car to a dealership. Ephraim dialed 911 prior to her death, but by the time emergency responders arrived, Smith had fled the scene. The following day, he showed up posing as an employee who had been tasked with collecting the recently sold car. Officers refused to let him take it, but he continued to come around in his repeated attempts to take possession of the vehicle. Smith became a suspect after investigators realized that the details of his various stories did not match up. He was arrested in late 2024 and later pleaded guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of first-degree burglary. Number 21. Daniel Shane Canales. Michigan teenager Daniel Shane Canales has been charged as an adult with multiple crimes, including the murder of 28-year-old Uber driver and father of 2, Alex Habib. According to reports, Canales led police on a high-speed chase in a stolen car last week with a pre-teen passenger in the vehicle during the early morning pursuit, which began outside an apartment complex and reached speeds as high as 130 miles per hour. He struck a vehicle being driven by Habib, who died from his injuries. The collision brought the chase to an end, and Canales was denied bond during his arraignment last Thursday. He's charged with second-degree murder, operating a vehicle under a suspended, revoked, or denied license, unlawfully driving away in a motor vehicle, and 2 counts of fleeing a police officer, and is currently awaiting his next court hearing, which is scheduled for July 28th. Number 20. Seth Schlueter. 30-year-old Seth Schlueter is facing a laundry list of charges in Clermont County, Ohio, after authorities say he left a woman and her family feeling terrorized in their own home during a road rage incident. Reports state that the incident began when the female victim honked at Schlueter and drove around his stopped vehicle roughly 35 miles north of Cincinnati. Schlueter is accused of following the victim to her home in Wayne Township, where he confronted her and her husband in a seemingly intoxicated state. According to an arrest report, the woman's husband tried to de-escalate the situation while his terrified wife hid behind the residence. In addition to wreaking havoc on the victim's home, Schlueter reportedly had his own children in the car with him when the outburst occurred. He's also accused of entering the victim's home without permission and causing damage to the property. Police later arrested him without incident at a convenience store, and he's currently in custody in lieu of $200,000 bond on suspicion of aggravated burglary, assault, aggravated menacing, 2 counts of operating a motor vehicle while under the influence, and 3 counts of child endangerment. Number 19. Gavin Thompson. Early last Wednesday morning, a Wisconsin man led law enforcement on a wrong-way chase with the dead body of a missing woman in the car he was driving. The incident began shortly before 2 o'clock in the morning when state police in Lancaster County, Nebraska, spotted the vehicle of 67-year-old Dorinda Segebrecht, who had been reported missing in Dodgeville, Wisconsin 2 days earlier. Officers quickly noticed that the driver, who was later identified as Thompson, did not match the description of Segebrecht when they attempted to enact a traffic stop. Thompson fled. During part of the chase, he exited the highway, then re-entered in the wrong direction in a construction zone. He lost control of the vehicle, struck a median, and then crashed in a creek before fleeing on foot. Inside the car, officers found what appeared to be the dead body of Segebrecht. Officials have not confirmed the deceased individual's identity, but revealed that it was clear that the person passed way before the car crash. Authorities caught up with Thompson about 4 miles from the accident scene. A law enforcement spokesperson stated that he had no prior connection with Segebrecht and that his crimes appeared to be a random act of violence. Thompson was initially detained on charges of reckless driving and avoiding arrest and has since been charged with murder. He remains in custody with bond set at $5 million. Number 18. Edwin Guzman. 23-year-old Edwin Guzman of Volusia County, Florida, stands accused of putting bleach in his ex-girlfriend's bottle of Tito's vodka and her facial products after their breakup. According to a probable cause statement, the former couple had lived together for about 2 years prior to going their separate ways. After the victim and her uncle went to Guzman's home to collect her belongings last Monday, they decided to do a shot of the vodka only to quickly realize that it tasted overwhelmingly of bleach. The woman called Guzman in front of sheriff's deputies who reportedly overheard him admitting to putting bleach in the tainted products. He refused to speak with law enforcement and was charged with poisoning water, food, or medicine with intent to injure or kill. Guzman is currently awaiting his next court hearing, which is scheduled for August 7th. Number 17. Desmariah Ramos and Darrin King. A Texas teenager whose boyfriend is facing charges for shooting a police canine with a machine gun has been arrested for helping him flee from law enforcement. 17-year-old Desmariah Ramos was taken into custody last week on suspicion of hindering apprehension or prosecution. Her boyfriend, an 18-year-old known gang member named Darrin King, is facing a multitude of felonies, including 6 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, interfering with a public service animal, evading arrest, resisting arrest, and retaliation. The original incident occurred on May 10th when King fled from officers who were responding to a civil disturbance in Waco. More specifically, police had received a call claiming that King was threatening Ramos's family. During the ensuing pursuit, King allegedly shot a canine twice before being taken into custody. Further investigation turned up evidence that Ramos had updated King on the whereabouts of officers who were searching for him, implicating her in his alleged crime spree. Number 16. Marco Antonio-Manuel de la Cruz. Angered over his breakup with his ex-girlfriend, 19-year-old Marco Antonio-Manuel de la Cruz allegedly shot the woman's dog out of spite, executing the beloved pet in a twisted bid for revenge against its owner. The incident occurred in Harnett County, North Carolina, while de la Cruz was at his ex-girlfriend's residence retrieving his belongings. According to a witness, he appeared upset and angry. Prior to the shooting, the canine, Luna, was outside going to the bathroom when the suspects reportedly picked her up, carried her to the side of the house, and opened fire on her in a completely unprovoked fashion. Just before the gunshots rang out, de la Cruz could be heard saying, "I'm tired of this shit." He was taken into custody last week on 1 felony count of cruelty to animals and was released after posting a $50,000 bond. His next court hearing is scheduled for July 29th. Number 15. Andy Byron and Kristin Cabot. In an embarrassing incident that was mainly bad news for the people involved, Married Astronomer CEO Andy Byron and the company's recently divorced head of human resources, Kristin Cabot, were seen canoodling on a jumbotron during a Coldplay concert in Foxborough, Massachusetts, last week. After realizing they had been captured by the band's so-called kiss cam, the mortified pair could be seen ducking from view, apparently all too aware that their alleged affair had been inadvertently exposed. 48-year-old lead singer Chris Martin unknowingly poked fun at the two, jokingly commenting that they were either very shy or having an affair. Of course, internet users were more than eager to follow up on the matter, and it's likely no coincidence that Byron's wife has since dropped her married name from her social media page. Byron has since released a statement apologizing for his actions, while complaining about how a private moment had been made public without his permission. Many have slammed the mea culpa as a failure to take true responsibility for his actions, and Byron is reportedly taking time to re-evaluate his life while remaining committed to his company's values. Number 14. The murder of Sunshine Sonny Stewart. A 17-year-old suspect has been arrested in connection with the death of 48-year-old paddleboarder Sunshine Sonny Stewart, who was found dead under unusual circumstances in Union, Maine, earlier this month. Her remains were discovered at the Micmac family campground in Crawford Pond, where she was renting a campsite for the summer. Stewart had been beaten and strangled to death just a few nights into her vacation, and the accused killer was taken into custody last Wednesday without incident. According to an official familiar with the investigation, the suspect's family is from Maine and vacations annually in the area where the victim's body was found. The teen is currently being held at a juvenile detention center as he awaits his next court hearing. Number 13. Hannah Freeman. A case we've discussed in our previous videos has now come to an end, with Ohio schoolteacher Hannah Freeman being sentenced to a week in jail for stalking her ex-boyfriend. Following her arrest last November, 27-year-old Freeman was accused of following the victim to his workplace at least 33 times over a month-long period. She also allegedly broke into the victim's car and stole at least $1,100 worth of his belongings, including his wallet and 2 computers. Freeman reportedly agreed to a plea deal, but her defense attorney argued during her sentencing hearing that the punishment imposed by the judge was not what the parties involved in the case had agreed upon. The defendant's lawyer attempted to withdraw her guilty plea, but the judge refused to grant the request, in addition to 7 days behind bars. Freeman was sentenced to 18 months of probation, along with the requirement to wear a GPS monitoring device for the first 3 months of her supervision. She'll spend those first 90 days on house arrest with the requirement that she seek mental health counseling during that time period, and she is also banned from contacting her ex. Number 12. Aaron Phypers. In one of the latest headline-making celebrity cases, Denise Richards has accused her estranged husband, Aaron Phypers, of trying to kill her during violent tirades, which Phypers vehemently denies. The allegations were put forth in an application for a restraining order last Wednesday, with 54-year-old Richards claiming that Phypers has choked, slapped, and threatened to kill her during past domestic altercations. The judge granted a temporary order of protection, but Phypers insisted in a statement to People magazine that he has never physically or emotionally abused Richards, who included photos of herself with what appears to be a black eye with her restraining order application. He further stated that he has always tried to approach his marriage to Richards with love, patience, and respect, and requested privacy while he undergoes a divorce from his wife of 6 years. Number 11. Felix Baumgartner. Legendary daredevil Felix Baumgartner has died in a paragliding accident in Italy. The 56-year-old Austrian extreme sports enthusiast reportedly crashed his flying vehicle into a hotel swimming pool in the coastal town of Porto San Elpidio after falling ill during his flight. He died instantly, according to reports, and a hotel employee survived after being taken to the hospital with neck injuries. Baumgartner's death was preceded by an ominous Instagram post, which appeared just 2 hours prior to the accident. The caption stated, "Too much wind." But given Baumgartner's history of pushing his limits, including a 24-mile skydive from the stratosphere in 2012, it's perhaps not surprising that the conditions weren't enough to stop him from flying that day. Number 10. Mark Sanfratello. An elderly suspect has been extradited from California to Oregon to face justice in the 1983 cold case killing of 27-year-old Teresa Peroni, who vanished after attending a party in rural Selma. The suspect is none other than the woman's boyfriend, 72-year-old Mark Sanfratello, whom she was last seen walking into the woods with. Peroni's whereabouts and fate remained a mystery until 1997, when a skull was found on a nearby property, and while Sanfratello was a suspect all along, authorities lacked enough evidence to charge him in connection with the case until recently. Thanks to advances in DNA technology, new findings were made after the case was reopened in 2024. This enabled investigators to definitively identify the skull as Peroni's, and Sanfratello was arrested in June in Chico, California. He's currently awaiting his next court hearing. In the meantime, authorities are urging members of the public with any information on the case to come forward and share what they know. Number 9. Richard Lindgren. A 59-year-old Ohio man named Richard Lindgren is facing charges for the murder of his ex-wife's new boyfriend, who was shot dead while singing karaoke to a Linkin Park song last week. The victim, 42-year-old Benjamin Hawk, was killed in an unprovoked fashion just before midnight at Louis' Corner House in Buckeye Lake. Lindgren had been married to Hawk's girlfriend until 4 months earlier. He reportedly had a history of showing up at the bar and making fun of his ex-wife's singing when she performed karaoke. According to a witness, he called the woman names and bashed her character, prompting a staff member to tell him he was no longer welcome at the venue if his hateful behavior continued. Authorities issued a warrant for Lindgren's arrest immediately after the shooting. He was apprehended in South Carolina the day after the murder and is currently in the process of being extradited back to Ohio. Number 8. Ralph Taylor Jr. and Casandra Taylor. A Wisconsin couple are in jail following the death of their young child, who police say was fatally shot by his own father during a moment of unrelated anger. According to authorities, 35-year-old Ralph Taylor Jr. was upset at his pre-teen stepson for taking his PlayStation, so he took a gun, which was purchased by his wife, Casandra Taylor, because he's a felon who is not allowed to possess a firearm, and shot his younger son in the mouth. Emergency responders rushed to the scene but were unable to save the child's life, despite their best efforts. Court documents state that Ralph initially claimed that a stray bullet had struck the victim from outside and that there were no guns in the home, but further investigation indicated otherwise. Ralph Taylor is facing charges of first-degree intentional homicide and unlawful possession of a firearm, while Casandra Taylor stands accused of child neglect and straw purchasing of a firearm. Number 7. Ramiro Ochoa Mendoza. Just days after being granted immunity from prosecution under California's mental health laws, 36-year-old Ramiro Ochoa Mendoza was accused of brutally murdering 47-year-old Noel Beatriz, whose body was found under a bridge. Mendoza already had a criminal record and a history of poor compliance with probation, but was deemed mentally incompetent to stand trial on a host of misdemeanor charges, including resisting arrest and violating an order of protection. Instead of being criminally prosecuted, he was entered into a mental health diversion program, which included supervision. He failed to show up for a scheduled review, but the court dismissed the charges despite his non-compliance with the program. Following Beatriz's death, Mendoza was arrested on suspicion of murder and is being charged with enhancements related to his prior offenses and the brutality involved in the killing. In the meantime, the case has fueled heated debates over the implications that mental health protections can have when it comes to public safety. Number 6. Joseph Meeks. An elderly Bronx man is facing charges for shooting 27-year-old cab driver Alasine Barry after he was unable to pay for a $40 ride from Harlem to the Highbridge neighborhood last Monday. According to reports, 76-year-old Joseph Meeks said, "I am going to kill you," before brandishing a pistol and opening fire on the victim, who survived a bullet wound to the stomach. The suspect then entered his nearby senior living complex. Speaking with the New York Post from his hospital bed, Barry said he was unsure that Meeks, who seemed intoxicated, had a gun until it was too late. He tried to put the car in drive in an attempt to escape the danger, but was unable to act fast enough to avoid the gunfire. Meeks was arrested at his residence 3.5 hours after the shooting and faces charges of attempted murder, assault, criminal possession of a weapon, and harassment. Number 5. Deepak Yadav. Indian tennis legend Radhika Yadav was shot to death in Gurugram last Thursday, and her father, Deepak Yadav, now stands accused of her murder. Police learned of the incident after hospital staff notified them that a woman had died from multiple bullet wounds. When officers arrived, however, only Yadav's uncle, Kuldeep Yadav, was present. Her father was nowhere in sight, and Kuldeep has since filed a complaint against Deepak, accusing him of killing his daughter during a dispute over her career. Deepak reportedly had an issue with a tennis academy that Radhika was running because locals were taunting him over his daughter's sizable income. Police say that during questioning, he admitted to firing 5 shots, 4 of which struck the victim. He will now face charges at the hands of India's notoriously slow justice system, where defendants often spend years waiting to go to trial. Number 4. Samantha Watts. A 42-year-old South Carolina woman named Samantha Watts and her teenage son, Peyton Watts, have been sentenced to hard time for killing a wheelchair-bound man that Samantha suspected of stealing from her. The two learned their fates last Monday when the judge overseeing their cases ordered Samantha to serve 45 years in prison, while Peyton received a 35-year term. The pair admitted to the murder of 29-year-old Corey Adams Souls, who was bludgeoned to death in January of 2023 after already having his leg broken by Peyton Watts in a prior attack. Souls' body was found in Horry County 6 days after he was reported missing. At least 8 people were arrested in connection with the fatal beating, and some of Samantha's other children have been convicted of charges related to the killing. Her 23-year-old daughter, Amber Watts, pleaded guilty to accessory after the fact and was sentenced to 6 years in prison, and her 21-year-old son, Jonathan Watts, received time served for first-degree assault and battery. Number 3. Pamela Jean Stanley. A 63-year-old Texas woman is facing criminal charges for trying to hire a hitman to kill her ex-husband before attempting to give him fentanyl-laced chocolates. Pamela Jean Stanley is accused of trying to send the victim the deadly candies after a paid assassin got cold feet and backed out of an agreement to kill the intended target. She made her wishes clear during a conversation with an undercover detective with the Parker County Sheriff's Special Crimes Unit, during which she described wanting to kill her newly engaged ex, 66-year-old Jeffrey Korth. She wanted the candies to be disguised as a congratulatory gift from her honeymoon travel agency, but the plot was foiled and she was arraigned last Tuesday on charges of criminal solicitation with intent to commit murder, criminal attempt to commit murder, and possession of a controlled substance with intent to deliver just 18 months earlier. Stanley had hired a hitman to kill Korth, but the contract killer apparently grew a conscience and warned Korth about his ex-wife's desire to kill him in hopes of obtaining their marital home and getting her hands on an inheritance that she was otherwise excluded from receiving. Stanley is currently free on a $450,000 bond amid the ongoing case. Number 2. Andrea Dumitru and Sabrina Starman. A mother and daughter have apologized for their roles in a recent fight over a parking spot in Queens, New York, but the victim is uninterested in their remorseful expressions. The incident was captured on video, which appears to show 45-year-old Andrea Dumitru and 21-year-old Sabrina Starman attacking 21-year-old Pace University student Jada McPherson in the Ridgewood neighborhood. In the clip, Dumitru can be heard calling the victim a while Starman called her a slave. Footage of the assault went viral, sparking a multitude of death threats and insults directed at Dumitru and Starman, who now say they're sorry for their actions. Both women are facing assault and harassment charges in connection with the case. In the meantime, the community has rallied around McPherson, making it clear that the Big Apple will not tolerate the type of prejudiced remarks and unprovoked hatred she received. Number 1. Guy House. 47-year-old Guy House, who was once named a wanted person of the week, carried out a deadly shooting at a Kentucky church, leaving 2 victims dead and several others injured. According to reports, House was searching for the mother of his 3 children when he opened fire on Sunday worshippers at the Richmond Road Baptist Church in Lexington. Police say he killed the woman's mother and sister before being fatally shot by responding members of law enforcement. The deadly incident occurred just days before House was scheduled to appear in court for a domestic violence case, although it's unclear if the case is connected to the mother of his children. According to witnesses, he barged into the church, realized his intended target wasn't present, and said, "Well, someone's gonna have to die," before he started pulling the trigger. He had a lengthy history of run-ins with law enforcement, which has now come to an unceremonious and tragic end, and at the expense of 2 innocent lives.